Thank you so much for tuning in to the Lily podcast for its very first season. We will be taking a short break before season two, but I want to say thank you to every person who liked, subscribed, commented, all the things, right? I'm super, super grateful for your support because I really do believe that the Lord is going to do something special through this platform. So your support really does mean the world to me. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, for the Lily season two, you can be on the lookout for the very first episode of season two dropping the first Monday of March. So that's going to be March 4th, Monday morning, season two, episode one is going to be live. In the meantime, while the Lily podcast is on break, we will be running episode replays. So if you've missed an episode, here's your chance to catch it again. Now, if you've already listened to all the episodes and you're not interested in listening to them again, head over to our social media pages. Stay connected with us. We will still be posting content. So continue to like, continue to comment, and continue to share, okay? Tell a friend to tell a friend about the Lily podcast. Again, we will be returning the first Monday of March, March 4th. Season 2, episode 1 is dropping. So I am grateful for your support, and I do say thank you in advance for tuning in to season 2. I am here with my lovely sister Stephanie, and she is going to be sharing her testimony. How you feeling?
I feel okay.
Good.
I'm excited.
How long have you been saved now?
Oof. Well, it's been a year. Like, seriously saved? Yes, like a year, I would say.
Okay. Give us a little background about who Stephanie was before Jesus.
I would say I was filled with, like, anger and resentment and, just living a double life because I was in the church system for a long time. That's why I said, oof.
Yeah.
But, seriously saved has been a year. So I would say, like, living a double life, just doing what I want, thinking I was still pleasing God, but pleasing myself,
Were you raised in church?
No.
Oh, okay. When did you like first decide to, I guess, begin going to church?
My older sister, she was like a club life kind of girl. And, she got pregnant at 14, gave birth at 15. And somebody spoke to her on the bus and shared the gospel.
Wow.
And she went to church. And me seeing the change in her intrigued me to, like, oh, snap.
How much older is she than you?
She's 29, so 5 years.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So how old were you when you first began to see the change in her life?
I think I was like 12 maybe.
Or okay. You were
like
pretty
11,
young.
yeah. And then I started actually going to church, I would say like a year or two after seeing her actually, change.
Okay. So tell us, I guess you can begin to tell us like what that time was like when you first began going to church, and I guess kind of how your walk progressed, because I know like you just said like you were, living a double
waters,
life. Yeah. So like how did all of that progress towards you truly encountering him and like really being transformed?
When I started going to church, it was very different for me. We grew up in like going to Catholic church, I guess, like here and there. Not a every Sunday thing, but just here and there kind of thing. But here we were going every Sunday, and then we were going like every Wednesday for like Bible study night, and whenever they had an event for like the youth, like youth nights. So I felt like I was in it, but I never really had that encounter. It was just like, oh, I'm just here, seeing my sisters change and trying to see what happened, really.
This was like, basically childhood, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then once you, began to grow up and kind of make your own choices, what did your walk progress into? Like how did your relationship with him kind of change?
After we were in that church for a few years. We decided to leave because we felt like there was more, you
Mhm.
know, and that led to a lot of church hopping. So there was somebody from that church that was going to start their own church, with the pastor's blessing.
Mhm.
And we became members of that church. It was smaller, in the house kind of. And there we had like a great youth. We were very like close knit. We all became best friends, and I felt there more like I was doing more of the work. I became a part of the choir. I
Mhm.
thought I was doing more of the work.
Yeah.
but but yeah, it was just after that. Then we left that church, went to another one. I was also a part of the choir, but I wasn't really reading my Bible or praying or, like living a holy life. Like I
Yeah.
was still in high school. So I was part of the choir, but, had a boyfriend and was doing things.
Mhm.
So it's just living in double waters. But I did feel like I was doing more, so to
Right.
say, just because I was in the choir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so then now take us through like the encounter that you had with him, because it's like, you were going to church when you were young and you saw like the change in your sister, but like we know, without an encounter, it can just be something that you do, a place that you go to, and it makes you feel good, but without an encounter it's really hard to see, the transformation happen. So I guess take us through, how you encountered Jesus.
Personally, my encounter happened with the miracle that is my son
Mhm.
because he was born premature and like very premature. So just seeing God every step of the way and God's timing, the way that God guarded us is just, I couldn't deny him
Mhm.
anymore.
Mhm.
So when I got pregnant, um, the first few months, I didn't know till I was 3 months pregnant, by the way, that I
Wow.
was pregnant. Yeah. Because I wasn't, I had migraines previously. So
Mhm.
nausea was normal for me.
Mm.
Yeah. And it wasn't a everyday thing where I was throwing up.
Mhm.
So it was like, oh, it could be because I have a headache. Like I didn't see that as a symptom of
Yeah.
pregnancy. But then I'm like, my ankles are kind of swollen, and like I stand up. Like for my work, it was I worked on my feet. So seeing my ankles swollen when I work 10-hour shifts on my feet every day, I'm like, that's weird.
Mm.
And then I was getting a little bloated, and I'm like, maybe I should just take the pregnancy test to be sure. And then I took the pregnancy test. My friend turned it around because I couldn't even do it, and it was positive.
Wow.
And it was very like a trial from the start
Mhm.
because I started spotting and I told my OBGYN, and he told me he did some blood work. He had me do an ultrasound. Everything looked normal from the ultrasound, but from the blood work, he was like, "Oh, you see this? You have O negative blood." And I was like,
Mm.
"Okay, what does that mean?" He was like, "That means you're the universal donor, but you can't receive any other type of blood but yours." So, my son, if he has his dad's blood, my body is trying to fight against it.
Mm.
So, my body is trying to get rid of the threat,
Yeah.
basically. So, from the beginning, that spotting was my body trying to get rid of my son. And had my doctor not been, on top of it and me, like, also on top of it, I guess, like, I could have lost him even there.
Right.
So, that was just something that I was like, wow, like, God, you had my back there, because it's little things that if we don't catch, it could like slip away, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
It does.
So throughout the pregnancy, I had high blood pressure for my appointments, but my doctor always said that could be normal in first time moms, because we're nervous. Like when you get pregnant, the first thing you're like, oh my gosh, am I gonna lose this baby? Am I gonna, like, that's
Mhm.
what crosses your mind all the time, at least for me,
Mhm.
personally. Like
No, I feel that.
you feel like you have to protect, the thing that's inside of you. And
Yeah.
I feel like I had a lot of anxiety with that. So me having high blood pressure, like I said to him, he said it was normal. Like it wasn't nothing crazy high.
Mm-hmm.
So he had put me on baby aspirin
Okay.
just to be safe,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the day that really like changed my life for me was the day I gave birth. It was 2 days after my birthday, and my mom wanted to celebrate my birthday. And that morning, I woke up with like really crazy heartburn. And at that point, like that same day, I was 27 weeks. So
Wow.
that's 7 months.
Really early.
So my baby was more on 6 months, than
Mm-hmm.
7. And waking up with that heartburn, my husband is working. So I call him. I'm like, hey, can you get a pack of Tums? Like I just feel really bad heartburn. And I'm waiting for him to get it. I woke up really nauseous too. He gives me one, and I like immediately run to the bathroom and throw it up immediately. And like morning sickness is the beginning of pregnancy.
Yeah.
So why am I throwing up now?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Were you
it
in
was,
pain?
I wasn't in pain
Okay.
at all. Like that's what really, shocked me because I'm like, why am I throwing up if this is like a beginning pregnancy thing?
Yeah.
Right. So after that, I, sit on my bed for a while. I have something to eat, trying to, feed the baby. And a few minutes pass and I throw that up too. So I call my mom and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm not feeling so well. I don't think, we could hang out for my birthday. Like, let's do it some other time.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells me like, oh, if you think you could make it, like just come over so I can make you a soup. Mom's always got your back, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know what? Maybe that'll be good for me. So let me get ready. I go to my mom's house, and on my drive there, I'm feeling nauseous, and I had to pull over,
And threw up
open my
again? Oh my goodness.
trigger warning. We're talking a lot about vomit here, okay? So yeah, I had to pull over, open my door, and like just it was like water, kind of.
Uh,
Yeah, but
I heard that like morning sickness can return like at different points in your pregnancy, but it is uncommon.
yeah.
When you were throwing up, were you worried at all?
I was a little concerned
Yeah.
because for me, after the 3 month mark, I had stopped throwing up,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And like I said in the beginning, it wasn't even morning sickness to me. It was just like, oh, this is, nausea from my migraines.
Right.
To me, it was normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to my mom's house and she's making the soup. And I eat it, throw it up. Like I said, I'm sorry, guys. Trigger warning. But after I threw it up and then I ate a little bit more, it finally like food sat in my belly for a while.
Okay.
So I was feeling better, And at that point, I wanted to buy new clothes because nothing was fitting me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the plan for the day. We were gonna go out to eat, but then go to like a Burlington and get some clothes. So we go shopping and I'm picking stuff out, and my legs look like crazy swollen. But to me, that's normal because
Mm-hmm.
I work on my feet. The last few months of my pregnancy, my feet were really swollen. My legs were swollen. So to her, she's like concerned.
Yeah.
We get home from our day of like shopping after the soup, and she has a brother that's a doctor in DR, Dominican Republic. And she calls him, sends him a picture. She's like, hey, her legs are like really swollen. What can we do about them? Like, is there something we could do to bring down the swelling? And then he sends a voice message and is like, oh, check her blood pressure. Because if her legs are that swollen and her blood pressure is high, like, you need to go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So we checked my blood pressure with her little machine that she has. And it was like 180 something over, like a crazy high number.
Wow.
Yeah. But then she couldn't believe it. So she was like, you know what, let's go downstairs because they have like a actual, like a manual one that,
Uh-huh.
does it itself and is more accurate.
Yeah.
Hers is the one that you have to like, hump yourself.
Yeah.
So we go downstairs to the neighbor's house, and I put my arm in. It's a bit more accurate, and after it tightens and loosens, it's like 192 over like 140 something, like something super high.
And it had never been that high before.
Never, no. Like it was elevated when I had my appointments, but nothing like this high before.
Right.
So my mom lives in a bad area where the hospital doesn't have a good reputation. But my OBGYN is from that hospital.
What?
But me not thinking nothing, you know.
What hospital is this?
St. Joseph.
In Patterson?
Yeah.
My nanny used to work there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good hospital for children, but for adults, you know, it has a
Yeah.
bad rep.
Okay.
And they take forever too. So me not thinking this is anything, you know, I'm like, let me go to my house, to the hospital near my house, which is a good area, is fast, you know, like they get stuff done.
Yeah.
They're not going to leave you there just chilling if this is serious, right? So my mom is obviously worried of me driving home, but I'm like, you know, just stay on the phone with me. If anything happens, you know to call, right? So I'm driving home, and I get there. I tell my husband what's going on. He had plans, had to cancel his plans. He was gonna go out with his friends, but yeah, he drives me to the hospital. He leaves me to check in at the emergency room. They bring down a wheelchair as they're like taking my information, and then they bring me up to the maternity floor while my husband's like getting parking. I think he wanted to get food too. I think he said, I'm gonna go get something to eat because I haven't eaten. But you know what? I'm gonna just let that go. So I'm in the maternity floor at this point. They tell me to put on a gown, and I'm just on the bed. They put the blood pressure just to check it. And they're just asking me a whole bunch of questions. You know, they saw that my blood pressure was high, and the doctors just made you feel so guilty. I don't know if that was the case for you, but for me, they made me feel so guilty.
Why?
Because they were like, how could you not know your blood pressure was this high? Like, were you ever diagnosed with blood pressure and not taking care of it? I'm like, no.
Were you still taking
The baby aspirin?
The baby
yeah.
aspirin, yeah.
I was taking it every day, just once a day. It's like this tiny little thing just to like control
Yeah.
the blood pressure, but they made me feel really guilty.
That's
It's horrible.
terrible.
I know. And I was like, no, I never got diagnosed with high blood pressure. You know, this is the first time this is happening to me. And the doctor also said, like, have you spoken to your OBGYN? And I was like, I kind of haven't had the chance to.
Right.
You know, I'm trying to rush to the hospital.
In the ER.
But at that point, my husband comes up, and, you know, everything is happening so fast. They're putting the baby monitors on me. They're trying to get, my hands were a little bit swollen too at that point. So they were trying to get like, to do the IV. They were trying to find a vein and couldn't find one. They were poking me everywhere. It wasn't working. At that point, like when everything was happening, I decided to call my OB because this man is just fantastic. He gave birth to me and my sisters.
Oh, wow.
Like he's my mom's OB. And we're here, you know, because he delivered us too.
Yeah.
So like I trust this man with my life. But I decided to go to a different hospital. Now I'm like, why did I do that? But, you know, back then I was trying to just get in quicker.
Yeah, it was an emergency.
Yeah. So I call him, and he's like, Stephanie, just breathe. Like, try your best not to get anxious and make your blood pressure even higher because we don't want this baby to get delivered. Like, he is too small right now. And I'm like, no pressure, doc.
Right.
But I understand what he was saying. Like, he was so, and as he said that, I was just like tearing up because I'm like, here I am trusting this doctor, and she's making me feel super guilty, you know, where my OB is just assuring me. So then the doctor notices on the baby monitor that like we're losing his heartbeat. So they start moving things around, can't find it. The doctor asks somebody, like one of the nurses, to bring in another machine that's like, I guess, more accurate. Couldn't see it there. She tells me Like, she looks at me in my eye and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but we're gonna have to do like an emergency C-section." And after that, I just remember then them unhooking me from the baby monitor, taking out the needle that they tried to put in, And I just looked at my husband, and like we both had such fear in our eyes. We
I
couldn't even say bye to
bet.
each other. Like, they just unhooked the side of the bed and started running with me
Listen,
to the
this is
OR.
this is my worst fear right here.
Yeah.
Hearing those words, oh, we have to do an emergency C-section.
Hmm.
Whew.
it was it was definitely an experience, okay? But just remembering them running with me on the bed, it was so frightening.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with my baby? And we get to the OR, and I didn't even fully get, like, admitted to the hospital yet. She was asking me the questions, and then, we lost the baby's heartbeat. So the anesthesiologist is behind me, and he's like, "Oh, do you verbally like, I'm literally looking up at him, and he has the mask about to
Yeah.
cover me, and he's like, "Do you verbally consent to getting anesthesia?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, what can
Right.
I say?
Definitely.
Like, am I gonna say no?"
I don't want to be awake for this.
Right. And then all I feel is like the razor on my lower abdomen, and then the sprayed on iodine,
Oh, you were awake.
just for that part.
Okay.
And then knocked out.
Okay.
It was quick, but I felt that.
Yeah.
I didn't feel the razor of
pain.
me starting to get like cut. Is they have to remove the hair
Oh.
to make the cut.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. For any surgery.
Okay. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I've seen them do it like sometimes in the TV shows, but usually it's just like iodine. They just like spray it on and then just go straight for the cut.
No, they have to shave the hair.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all I remember, like the razor, iodine, and then a mask. I literally like consented to the doctor looking behind me because I'm on the bed.
Yeah.
But after the C-section, I wake up in this room. It's like very empty. The nurse is there with like one of those standing computers, trying to finish admitting me, and I'm just like shaking in the bed, like shaking like crazy. I don't know if it was cold, if it was like nervousness, but they put like a lot of blankets on me, so like the weight could make me calm down, I guess.
I've seen that like women shake after
surgery.
having the baby.
Oh, okay.
Even like regular
Natural.
birth, like they shake after. And I can't remember what the reason was, but I remember like feeling shaky after I had my first son, and I'm like, what is this? Like, is something wrong?
It's so
like,
uncomfortable,
I'm
yeah.
like, something is going wrong. Like, something isn't right. But I looked it up on like TikTok or something, and it's pretty normal, but it is weird. I don't remember what the reason was, but yeah, go ahead.
So it was a really uncomfortable feeling, and they're finished trying to check me in, and I remember like my husband coming in, and then he saw me shaking, and he just walked out.
While he was
It
there?
wasn't. I think he was scared, or like like sad to see me like that. Like it was uncomfortable. Like I can't
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
So then he comes back in once I'm calm, and he's like feeding me ice because I'm so thirsty. Like I felt like I was intubated. I
Were
felt
you?
like, I don't know, because I was knocked out.
Yeah.
But I felt like there was like something rubbery taken out of me. Like it tasted like,
Yeah.
like something had been in my mouth. So I was so thirsty. I'm like, I want to get this taste out of my mouth. And he was just feeding me ice. And the nurse was like, "Oh, don't give her too much ice. She could throw up." I'm like, I don't care right now. Like, I just want liquids.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, I did throw up. Listen. Should that be like in the title? But yeah, I was just like throwing up water because I just wanted so much ice, and I could barely talk. Like my husband was giving the answers for me. Like I would whisper it to him because I didn't have a lot of volume in my voice. The nurse was like across the room, so I had just gotten out of this surgery, and I can't yell to you over there. So I'm like whispering it to my husband so he could tell her what's going on. Um, but yeah, very traumatic. I don't even know what happened to my baby. You know, I'm like, where's my baby? Like, what? Is he alive? Like,
They didn't tell you
no.
anything?
And I asked my husband, and he said he's alive,
Mm-hmm.
but
What hospital did you birth at?
Inglewood.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
It's a good hospital. Like they're quick, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know, some attitude of some of the nurses and doctors. Okay, like now thinking back, I remember when I was being checked in, the nurse, no, not the nurse, the doctor, she was like, "We're trying to keep you from having a seizure right now." Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, like, it's not my fault my
Yeah,
blood
that's
pressure is
like
high. Like,
terrible
you're just
bedside
making it
manner.
worse. But yeah, like me thinking back, I'm like, I was said some things, okay?
You know, it's so funny. Like, I mean, you hear all the time that like nurses are like mean girls from
Rude,
high school or
yeah.
whatever. But there's also like a thing where they say like the nurses that work in labor and delivery are the worst. Like they're super
And
mean.
that's when you need the most like comfort. It's really sad.
That's terrible.
Another thing I remembered, I'm so sorry. I didn't say it earlier, but one of the nurses was a patient at my old job.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'm like, I was so glad to have a familiar face.
I was gonna say, did that
because
make
she
you feel more
was
comfortable?
so nice, and like obviously she can't go over the doctor. So she did as much as she could, but I remember waking up when I was shaking. She was the one that was like putting blankets on me and like holding my hand, and I was like, "Where's my baby? Where's my baby?" Like as my husband was feeding me ice, like
Yeah.
she was the one that was there. So having that familiar face, like I would never forget that.
Yeah.
I would never forget that she was a light in a room of darkness, literally.
That's good.
Yeah. After I get admitted, I'm so like shaky still and like nervous. I don't know if my husband wanted to show me the picture right away to make me feel worse, I guess, because the last thought in my mind was that he was like in the NICU intubated, needed 10 million machines, like that's the last thing in my mind. I'm thinking, oh, they're just, they just took him away to, like I assumed that he needed some help, but not as much as he got, right?
Yeah.
Because when we're pregnant, like at least for me, I didn't want to Google anything. Like
Oh, you different.
anything.
Listen, I was on all the apps. I was
Really?
Googling everything. TikTok.
No, but you know why? Because I didn't want to worry
Scare
myself
yourself.
and for something to like become my reality, if that makes sense. Like,
No, it
if,
does.
If I look so much into this, like it will happen to me.
Yeah, then you start believing and yeah.
So I didn't look up anything at all. Like when I had symptoms, I would call my doctor. So I never looked up anything of the NICU. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know, what happens in there. But yeah, I go up to the labor and delivery floor. And the first 2 days, I was like immobile. I was still super swollen. They had this machine on my legs
To massage
to
them.
like give me circulation, and I had to wear it like at least 23 hours. I could only have it off for like 1 hour. But then the third day of me being in the hospital, that's when I was finally able to like push myself up and stand up. So I'm like, I want to see my child, right? I saw him in the picture at that point. I saw him with all the tubes and stuff, and it was disheartening. But in the picture, he didn't look super tiny to me. I'm like, oh, he's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like, he's gonna make it, right? And I go to the NICU, and I'm seeing all these babies because it's like incubator after incubator after incubator, right? And my husband's like moving me in the wheelchair, and I see this like tiny, like super tiny baby, and I'm like, please, Lord, let it not be that one. Like, I'm so serious, just because I'm like, he looks so fragile and delicate, and like he's so tiny. Like, please let me have at least a little chunky NICU baby, right? And no, it was that little skinny baby.
Yeah.
That was my baby. So I'm like, okay, this is how we're gonna do it. So I get there and I'm seeing him for the first time, and he looks so much tinier in the, in person than in the picture. And took a picture with him, like with my hand, just so people could see how tiny he truly was.
Wow.
Because if you see the picture, it's like the incubator's here, right? My baby's on inside, and I put my hand next to him, so you could see that it's like 1.5 of my hand. That was him. He was long because my husband's tall,
Yeah.
but he was so skinny. For reference, maybe I could show the diaper now. These are some things from the NICU that I have. So this is his first diaper.
Wow.
Little tiny
I thought
1
newborn
pound.
diapers were small.
Yeah. Little tiny 1 pound baby. And these are some things that actually they give to the moms when the babies don't make it.
Oh, wow.
So when I was discharged, they gave me this, and it's funny because I found that out later.
I was about to ask, like, did you know that?
This was a Band-Aid.
I
don't know if you could see
that.
it.
Why would they do that?
No, I'll explain better. So, my baby, nobody really thought he was gonna make it because he was 1 pound, like 1.7 pounds, right? And the days coming, like leading up to my discharge, the night before the day I got discharged, they call me. The NICU calls my phone, and they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but we're gonna have to transfer him to another hospital. We don't have the equipment that he needs." So it's a machine called the oscillator.
Yeah.
And what it does, it like shakes the baby's chest to get like his lungs to function correctly, because he was birthed right before his final organs got to grow and, mature. So we go down to the NICU. We have to sign paperwork to authorize him getting transferred. And yeah, he was taken in one of the little like ambulances to St. Joseph because they're a children's hospital, and they have amazing equipment. They deal with preemies all the time.
It's so ironic
Isn't
that you
it?
ended up back there
Isn't
anyway.
it? I ended up there anyways, but like I said, it's an amazing children's hospital.
Yeah.
So for children, it's not a problem. But me personally, when I have an issue, I do not want to go there.
Yeah.
But yeah. So my last night, that happened in the like I want to say 11 p.m., 12 a.m. So that night I was just like devastated because I'm like, my baby's not even in this hospital now. I can't even go see him. And we had 24-hour access to see him. Since we were in the hospital.
That's awesome. My
Yeah.
second son, he had to stay in the NICU because he had jaundice. So he was there for like 8 days, but they would not let us stay all night.
Yeah, it's only when you're like admitted.
Okay.
Yeah, after you get discharged, we don't have 24-hour access either.
Okay.
Yeah. So that night I just remembered I just stayed up praying, like praying so hard, like God, all my life I wanted to be a mom. Like all my life. And then this is what happens. It was like so hard. And I was just praying like, Lord, this could be an amazing story if he lives, right? And that night I just was restless. I was sleepless. My husband was, on the couch snoring, but I couldn't, like, the fact that he needed more, like a more stronger machine to be transferred to a different hospital was just devastating for me. But the next day I got discharged, and they were still concerned with my blood pressure, and I was like highly medicated. Like I was really tired, very forgetful.
Can you get tissue? Thank you.
Very forgetful, and I remember when we were going like to the car to get discharged to like go home, right? Like I had my flowers and balloons from the birthing, like it's a boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And heading down, um, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Heading down, everybody's congratulating you, and I'm like stop, like don't congratulate me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it sounds horrible, but it's like, what about mothers that lost their baby? You know, because that's how I thought about it. I know my baby was still alive in a different hospital, but I'm like stop congratulating me. Really, I said it in my head, but that's how I felt because you see me with things, but with no baby.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I can't imagine a mom that would have lost her baby, like a stillbirth or something like that. But but yeah, we go straight to the hospital after my discharge. Like I didn't even go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a C-section, so my husband had to drive very carefully, you know, like with potholes and stuff, and Patterson has a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just in the car like leaning back and you know in so much pain, so much pain, and I was still really swollen. And we get to the NICU, and my son is there, you know, with the machine, and it's like shaking his chest, and it's hard to watch. And we're in a room with other NICU babies and other parents who are just as worried as us, right? And after that, it was just really visiting him every day, at least for me, you know. Some, like, I couldn't drive, but I would get rides to
Mm-hmm.
the hospital.
Yeah.
Like when my husband couldn't, my sister would, or my mom would, or like some people from the other church that I was going to would. But I would make it like my number one priority to see my son at least once a day. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't be there forever because it was a really hot room, and I was still like groggy with the medicine and the C-section. I couldn't stand for very long, so I would be in a chair,
Mm-hmm.
and the heat of that room would just make you feel like faint. So I was like very dizzy in there.
Mm-hmm.
But but after that it was just like a waiting game, really, because we got a 1 pound baby, you know. He's right now he's intubated with a feeding tube to be able to be fed, and they only drink like a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
at that point. So I was pumping and I was able to get like droplets.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much because I was so stressed. Like I didn't get much. And then, you know, a plastic is not the same as
Mm-hmm.
the actual experience of nursing,
Yeah.
where your body would let it go.
Mm-hmm.
When it's a piece of plastic, you know, like the pump. I didn't get much, but I'm like, I want my baby on breast milk. They tell us the importance of breast milk for NICU babies. Like, it's gold to them,
Mm-hmm.
literally. So, me not being able to breastfeed was another hit, you know, because it's something I did want to do.
Yeah.
Who knows, you know, I don't know. I never really got to do it, but it's something I did want to do
Mm-hmm.
before all of this happened. And not being able to provide that was like devastating. And them telling me the importance of like having breast milk, they have an option where, you know, your baby's gonna need more milk soon, and we know you're not producing that much. Are you willing to like let him get donor breast milk? I'm like, of course, you know, absolutely. So I signed that without, you know, hesitating.
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, it's somebody else's milk. I'm like, so it's breast milk, you know, it's better than formula, right? Especially for NICU babies, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. My baby drinks formula. I'm not knocking formula moms because I am one, okay? But when it comes to the NICU, like me given that choice, I definitely was like, yes, let's
Yeah.
do the donor milk, right? And so yeah, after that was just a waiting game. I became really friendly with the staff. Like, you know, they're like, "Oh, you're here again?" I'm like, "Yeah, all day, every day, right?" But he had to hopefully be off the feeding tube. You know, some children do go home on feeding tubes, but the goal for him to get home was to be off the feeding tube, be able to take milk on his own, and to be able to breathe on his own because he had like respiratory machines too, and to be at least 4 to 5 pounds. So that was like the goal.
Yeah.
And
How long did it take?
it took 3.5 months.
Sheesh.
So I was going to the hospital every day for 3.5 months. Yeah. And it was, I remember the first time I was able to carry him because, you know, when they're so young, they don't want you touching them. They feel like they're still in the belly. You know, just them getting like the, because they had like a IV, tiny needles. So just them getting that, getting their diaper changed is very uncomfortable for them. So they would tell me to like limit touching because their skin is also very like
Thin.
yeah, very thin, very sticky.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like we had to like wear gowns and gloves. So like the stickiness of the glove could hurt their skin.
Okay.
So I couldn't really touch him too much at first, you know. And I remember the day that they told me, "Oh, mom, you could carry him. Like he's a certain weight where you could, you know, carry him for the first time." And at that point, I still wasn't able to drive. But you know me,
Made
I
a
did
way.
not care. Okay, I was like, you know what? I turned 6 weeks postpartum in like 2 weeks. Like I'll be all right. To be honest, you know, I'll drive slow, whatever. Because I did not have a ride that day. I'm like, there's no way. Out of all days, the first day I could carry my baby, you guys aren't gonna take me.
Yeah.
So I drove myself, you know, parked, and I was like ecstatic. And I went, and it was like, you know, like this, because super delicate, you know, we have to have the wires in the way, but just me holding him and having him, when you see that picture and he looks like a little peanut. Like he's so tiny. It's like holding this microphone. Like,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. But it meant everything to me.
Yeah.
It was the closest I got, right? And after that it just was progression, you know? Like I prayed hard. That's when I had my encounter because I'm like God, you're all we literally have now, you know? Like all I could have is hope. There was no choice for me. It's either like have hope and pray for this baby, or like the nurses and science is gonna give you that negative connotation that he's not gonna make it, you know?
Yeah.
Because of the little souvenir of the other hospital. When I talked to some of the nurses in St. Joseph, like where he was transferred, and I told him, "Oh yeah, I got like his first diaper and it's so tiny." And she was like, "Oh, that's weird because they usually give that to babies that don't make it." So their mom could have like memorabilia, I guess.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, to me it wasn't that, cuz when the nurse gave it to me, I felt like she just wanted me to have it, if that makes sense. At least that's what I felt from the nurse, because I remember I just asked for his blanket when he was being transferred. I was like, "Can I have the blanket that he was laying on?"
Yeah.
And then I was in my room that night that I was praying for him when he was transferred, and she comes in with this little bag. She's like, "Oh, here, just in case you want some of the things from the NICU that we use, but good luck on your journey." I didn't feel anything like negative with her, you
Yeah.
know? I didn't feel like, "Oh, well, he's not gonna make it," so
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't feel that at all with her.
Okay.
It was like, you know, since she asked for the blanket, maybe she'll want this to remember too.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
Okay.
After a few, like a month and a half, I would say, we were able to do skin to skin for the first time, and they put this little peanut in my shirt. He's so little, and he loved it.
Yeah.
Like he loved it. They tell us to do it for at least an hour. Like if you can't stay for an hour, don't make him come out of that thing and, you know, bother him, because that's like, he feels like he's in the belly, you know, because the warmth. And
Yeah.
aside from all the tubes and stuff. So you know, I would do longer than an hour. I would do 3 if I could. It was very hot in there, but I did what I can. And when they would take him off of me, he was just so like like the nurses had okay, he made the nurses work. He had a time with them, okay? They used to call him like firecracker, because he was just full of energy, made them work really hard. He would
Wow.
take everything off,
Wow.
everything. He was a strong, strong baby. So, yeah, after months of skin to skin and, being there for him, seeing many different families come and go and babies that don't make it, um, babies that did make it, like being happy for somebody else, waiting for your moment.
Mm-hmm.
It was a beautiful, really hard experience, but it was beautiful too when I got to see like, oh, they're getting discharged,
Yeah.
right? And some babies left with oxygen tanks. One of them left with a feeding tube. And yeah, once he reached the 4 or 5 pound mark, he had hernias because he just made so much strength. He just made such, like, he pushed a lot, like he was just very feisty. So it caused him to have inguinal hernias. He had to have a surgery for that, and they did the circumcision right there. So that was the only surgery, thank God, that he needed.
Yeah.
Only
Thank God.
surgery from a 1 pound baby is like unheard of.
Yeah.
They usually have like a lot of problems. And he went home with no need for like an oxygen machine, no need for nothing really. He went home good. But 2 weeks after he was discharged, he started acting weird. Like he was not pooping. He was not throwing a gas when I would burp him. He was very like lethargic. So I decided to take him to the hospital, and they did the little pulse sock on his foot, and he needed oxygen. So he was admitted again for like 2 weeks, and this time was in Inglewood, and it was a good experience. Like, he was bigger. They had the machines he needed, and it was just waiting to see until he got off the oxygen, and he did. He went home with no oxygen, and he's been home ever since. He was in and out of the hospital for a little bit because he would get sick really easily.
Yeah.
But in regards to him being in the NICU, that's it. He's been home, and he's been a good boy, and he's gaining weight, hitting those milestones.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us, like, through that experience, like, where was Jesus through it all?
To me, it was a lot of like having faith and prayer. And I remember the church I used to go to, I got a prophecy, and they said, many of the babies from the NICU survived because of your prayer, because there was like a hedge of protection over the room where my son was, because it was
Amen.
like different rooms of NICU babies.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered a blanket on Amazon with a Bible verse because the incubator is like an acrylic kind of glass, and I'm like, maybe I could bring this in. I asked, and yeah, people bring stuff, just to make it feel a little more personal, like it's their home, right? So this blanket said, "You were fearfully and wonderfully made," that verse, and I put it over him to cover him because that's how they sleep, like you, and then the nurses would check if anything, but I would put that over him. It's like declaring a Bible verse over him. Yeah, so to me, it was really like I had to be steadfast in my prayer. That was like when my prayer life really started for me. Because, like I said, I lived a double life. And I didn't think of Christianity as having a relationship. To me, it was like doing works in the church.
Yeah.
Like serving in the church. And like I said, I was in the choir. So I thought I was saved, okay?
So through this experience and like after being put in a situation where you have to press into relationship with Jesus, how would you say life has changed? Like, how has Jesus transformed you today through this experience or any other experience? Up to you.
Yeah. I feel like that was the first time where I saw like I can't let go. I can't just pray one time and think something is going to happen. That was the first time where I saw that, like, prayer is a battlefield. Like, it could be a battlefield, you know, like, it's a process, because it was like there'll be progression with him, but then, oh, he needs this machine again. And then he'll be good. Now he needs hernia surgery. So it was like, I want to say, a roller coaster, but I was still always praying, and I was just like always positive. You know, I knew my baby was going to make it.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of when. So to me, it was really having that consistency. That was my first time being consistent in prayer, because was usually the type where I would easily, like, just pray once about it, twice, you know, and then let it go, or nothing happened. But then, you know, like, we really have to press in and exhaust, right? Exhaust
Yes.
the prayer, because that's when things happen, when you really give it your all. And I felt like it was really hard for me, because I was also, like I said, on strong medication for the blood pressure. And I was just losing a lot of my memory. So, like, I didn't lose any memory of, like, the rules of driving. Like, I knew
Yeah.
how to drive and things like that. But memory, and, like, yesterday they would tell me something about him, and I would forget the next day. And it's like, or my husband, you know, he was working, so he couldn't be at the NICU all the time like I was. And he would ask me about the baby, like, oh, what did they say about the baby today? And I'm like,
I don't remember.
I don't remember. And it was such a battle for me. Like, that was really hard, because it has never happened to me where I can't remember things,
Yeah.
you know? And I know in pregnancy, you know, we get, like, mommy brain, and we get a little fogged, but on that medication, it just made it 10 times worse. Yeah, so that was really hard for me, and praying for the Lord to bring back my memory too, you know, eventually.
Yeah. So, where would you say you are today in terms of your relationship with Christ, and, you know, being steadfast, but, like, being grounded in him? How would you say, you know, your relationship looks like today?
I definitely have a lot more patience, you know, because it was a process, and then he was in and out of the hospital after that. So I have more patience in that sense. I feel like my faith has definitely increased, you know, because, like, nobody believed but me. Nobody was fighting for my baby but me. You know, I was his voice. So when, like, doctors and nurses wanted to do things, I would say no.
Yeah.
And, like, that's not necessary, right? So I had faith that, where for science it looked like it was impossible, for God it was possible. And that's what I feel that experience has really taught me.
Awesome. What advice would you give to someone who is going through a tough time, maybe with their children, or, you know, just being in a situation where you really do have to press into prayer, and, like, even speaking to, like, the roller coaster of it all, like, you see progression and then maybe a setback. Like, what advice would you have for someone in terms of really cultivating their relationship through a time like that?
Well, for me, I would say just trust, just have trust in the Lord, you know, like, full trust, because I was at a point where I had faith. I'm not saying I didn't, but I was like, if you want to take him, that's fine with me. Like, you know, I trusted God's will for my life. So I would just say, we're not the ones in control. So we have to completely lay ourselves down, and, you know, prayer, yes, like, have prayer, but also understand he has a will and he has a timing. And yeah, that's what I would say. Just have a lot of trust in God.
Amen. Who do you know God to be?
I know him to be a miracle worker.
Amen.
Okay, because listen, a 1 pound baby, that's like incredible that he's normal now. Because they always have, not always, but you know, they usually have some kind of something slowing them down. Or he could have went home with oxygen or, you know, medication. He didn't need anything. He went home perfectly fine.
That's so awesome.
So God is a miracle worker.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Lily Podcast. For a while, I have been wanting to put out a call to salvation. And the call to salvation begins with the gospel. The gospel says that God became man in Jesus Christ, that Jesus lived a perfect and sinless life, the life that we were all supposed to live, and he died the death that we are all deserving of due to our sin. 3 days later, he rose again, proving that he is the Son of God, offering the gift of salvation and forgiveness of sins to all those who would repent and believe in him. If you have not answered the call to salvation and you want to answer the call to salvation, please fill out the form below and let's see if I can get you connected with disciples in your local area so that you can get started on your journey with Christ. If you have answered that call to salvation but you haven't been activated in the Great Commission, you can use that same form below and I can get you connected with disciples in your local area that can show you how to get activated and get involved in the work that God left us here to do. The Great Commission says, "Go therefore, preaching the gospel, making disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey the things that God has commanded us." As Christians, we have a work here on this earth. So if you haven't been activated, use that form below and let's get you activated. Once again, I'm so grateful and I really do appreciate your support. Thank you for tuning in and meet us back here next week because we will be dropping a new episode every Friday. Thank you for your support.